Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dear Trans Families Community Questions Answered. We have a lovely group of people here that we are going to answer some of the most commonly asked questions by parents who have trans non binary children. So, thanks everybody for being here. And welcome to our lovely stream. We're going to start out first by letting you know that this event is for our fundraiser. This spring, we are taking 48 hours and trying to raise $60,000. And we actually right now have a double match where for every dollar you give, $3 is given to TransFamily. So if you give $100, that means $300 to us. If you give $1,000, that means $3,000 to us. So if you go to transfamilies.org/donate, that will take you to the site where you can donate to our fundraising campaign and help fund our wonderful programs that we have here at TransFamilies. So thanks everybody. Please go check that out. We are going to just go around really quick and introduce ourselves. I am Revel. I am the development manager at TransFamilies. I'm also a trans, non-binary, genderqueer person and the parent of a trans kiddo. So that's me. And I've got Aiden over to my, I've got Aiden over to this side. So Aiden, why don't you go ahead and go?
Okay, hi. I'm Aiden Key, and I've been with the organization for a really long time as a founder and engage in activities with my team with program development and also fundraising. So that's a bit about me. Shall I pass to Casper? Keep going. I mean, that way.
Hello, I'm Casper. I'm one of the program coordinators, and I've been here for a while, but not as a program coordinator. It started, I went to the kids groups back in the day.
Cool, thanks. How about we drop down and go to Shannon?
Hi, I'm Shannon. I've been a facilitator with TransFamilies for a while, and I'm a gender educator and also a parent of transgender children. I'll pass it to Luana.
Thank you, Shannon. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am Luana Johnson. I'm the interim executive director here at TransFamilies, and you can see I'm she, her, and I'm the family member of a transgender person. Passing it on to Kara.
Thanks, Luana. I'm Kara. I use she, her pronouns here at TransFamilies. I'm the program monitor. I'm a transgender woman. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be helping out with this stream today.
Yay, thank you so much. Thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. So yeah, we are here to raise funds for trans families, of course, with that exciting double match that we have. I did want to just let everyone know very quickly that we are at $9,933 right now out of the $60,000 that we're working to raise. And so every little bit you give makes that little thermometer go up really fast because of that double match. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody, send them carrier pigeons, whatever it takes to help bring in some great funds for trans families. So thanks everybody for that. And we are here to answer questions that parents most commonly ask. And I have a little slide that I will show you. Look, woohoo! It's a slide. So here is our first question, and it's kind of a icebreakery question. Does your family have any cool spring traditions? Or tell us what spring looks like in your home. Would anybody like to talk about spring in your family?
I could start.
Oh, Kara, how surprising.
I know. It's like almost like I love going first or something. Yes. Spring also is probably my favorite season at this point in the year. Like in my life, I no longer have school to go to or anything. So it's when it starts to get warm, everything starts to grow again. And I love that time of year. So I'm a big into gardening. We're starting a sort of native plant garden in our backyard. So that's a big part of my spring every year. We always do pictures with the cherry blossom trees. I live on the East Coast here in DC. And finally, the big thing about me is that I'm a giant birder. So I love to go outside, watch bird migration, and see all the birds coming back from their winter places.
All right, I think you'd enjoy hearing I had a very close encounter with a pileated woodpecker 2 days ago.
Those are great birds. Great birds.
Well, speaking of birds, I live in the Midwest, so spring is about 1 to 2 weeks long here. And we have turkeys. So springtime is mating season here. It's fascinating to watch the males strut around with their feathers, and the females are like eating like I can't pay attention to you. And we watch all the behavior, and this year we have two males alone away from the rest of the pack. So I say we're welcoming home. They know they're welcome here.
That is so cool. I actually used to live in Utah, and there was a huge turkey farm in Ephraim, Utah, and they can be very loud and a lot of feathers. And just going through that area of the freeway, it was always like feathers lining the freeway. Always so strange. Um, in our family, we celebrate in the early spring. We celebrate Ostara, which is the spring equinox, and we actually for Yule and Ostara, we have Darth Vader brings all of the presents and brings any things like chocolate or jelly beans or all of that stuff. So Darth Vader always comes and visits us in our family in the spring and in the winter. Who else would like to talk about your spring?
I think our biggest tradition in my family is, and then everybody's seasonal allergies get really bad. But there's the very important thimbleberry season, which it's about 2 days long.
Thimbleberry.
Thimbleberries, they're like imagine if a raspberry was shaped more like a thimble
Mm-hmm.
and was the exact right size to be a thimble.
That's cool. What do
they
taste like?
The fruit only grows like, and it's ripe for maybe a week, maybe, and they're delicious. And I know where there's a lot of them.
That's really cool. I live in Oregon now, and there are a lot of different berries that I had never even heard about. So it's really cool that there's so many different kinds of berries.
Like
That's cool.
salal.
Well, and then there's those like the cherries that are only out for a week or so, and there's all kinds of stuff. That's really cool. Anybody else want to talk about your spring, or shall we move to our next question?
I'll jump in there real quick. I love spring. Of course, there's lots of different flowers. So I love fresh flowers and bringing different types of fresh flowers into my home. And also farmers markets begin. So we love going to May is the time, beginning of May is when they start here in Seattle. So we love going to farmers markets and just spending time being outdoors and enjoying being outdoors. That short time that the sun comes out in Seattle.
Yeah.
So
right.
anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'll just quickly add. I'm discovering a new relationship to spring after almost 40 years, also in the Seattle area. You know, I could name a lot of things that are pretty fantastic about spring in Seattle. And I'm not there. I'm in Juneau, Alaska. And so the first part is the increased number of daylight hours that is so uplifting and energizing, even if the weather isn't quite cooperative yet. But also, there's this tiny magic window where it's a mosquito-free zone. Doesn't last long. I see the little critters, not little. I see them, buzzing around, starting to buzz around now. And I guess the third part is one of the first things that pops out of the ground. While Seattle, I think we see crocuses and cherry blossoms, like Cara mentioned, but it's skunk cabbage. And so it is a glorious, wild-looking plant with a very bright flower and big, huge green leaves. And it is pretty, it's the first sign. It can even it does this interesting thing where it generates heat, so it can even crack itself through snow. So I just learned that since being back. There you go, springtime.
Very cool.
Like a
Yay
giant
for-
crocus, but with better perfume.
Yeah, it's got quite a smell. It's pretty amazing.
That's cool. Well, thanks everybody for sharing about your spring. Our first question is, I just found out my child is trans. How can I support them while still learning? I think a few of us have dealt with this one with parents that have come to our support meetings for sure.
I have an immediate thought, and that has to do with the questioning of, is my child trans? Because sometimes we don't get the answers for that at the outset. How do you know? Where does that information come from? How reliable is it from a child's mouth? Is that child 17, or are they 7, or are they 3, or are they 27? And so before we can even get to that, I think having an understanding that that the way to best support them is to not be so stuck on knowing whether or not that child will land on an end gender destination. What do they need? They need support. How do you do that? You step in, you listen, you be receptive and hear that. Believe them. If it changes a week later, it's okay. Be there, be receptive. Say, thank you for sharing. I'm on this journey with you. So knowing that piece, I think, as a first launching place can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I'll just tag on to that I think what Aiden especially was saying at the beginning, that desire for an answer can lead us to ask questions and it from an energy that is almost kind of pressuring. And so I think the best thing to do is just lead with love, like that gratitude Aiden talked about. Like, thank you so much. Like, you've created a space that they felt like could speak their truth. And that's pretty amazing. And so center yourself in love and less in fear. Not that fear's not may be there, but like center your actions in love and act from there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's lovely. And then, a good place that you can go is TransFamilies. We have support groups for parents who are learning as they go and learning, how do I process this? How do I support my kid? That's exactly a place that you can go to do that. Cara.
I'd also just say that I think one interesting thing that I think people don't talk about much, and it goes off of what both Aiden and Shannon were saying, is that when a child comes out, no matter the age, a lot of times they don't have it all figured out either. They may have been thinking about this for a long time and all of these things, but they're trying to figure it out too. And it's a lot of pressure to be doing that. And I think, asking a couple of questions is all very good. And I think that's a very healthy, important thing to do, but also giving them space to explore for themselves and learn for themselves what feels good, what doesn't feel good. And also taking a step back and going to those resources like TransFamilies to kind of get some of those other questions that your child is also trying to answer for themselves answered for you from a separate place, so they don't feel the constant pressure to have all of those answers for you. I think kind of just giving them the room to kind of grow and explore as you both are kind of entering a new space is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Cara. Anybody else? Or we should go to our next question, which is, how do I tell extended family?
You start with the ones you think are going to react the best. If you can get like one extended family member on board and very supportive, they can maybe help you with talking to the people you suspect might not react positively.
Yeah, that's a really good strategy. That's a great strategy to start with. And then, a big thing is letting your child lead on how much and what they want to even do. Some kids don't want you to disclose to anyone. Some of them um, would rather not talk to, they're okay with this level of family, not this one. I mean, it's the child needs to let you know what they would like for sure. So that would be step one.
Yeah, and I think along those lines is like you don't have to tell everyone at once either.
Hmm.
So having that conversation with your child to find out who do they want to know, and maybe because I've dealt with young kids a lot, that I also like here's what I think about like who do you want to tell? Who do you want to tell them? Like, do you want me? Do you want to tell them? Because each of my kids has a different personality, right? Of who wants to do the talking. And then if it's me they want me to tell, then I usually share the message with them before I talk, whether it's in writing or in person. Here's what I'm going to say. What do you think?
Hmm.
Making sure that it reflects, what that it aligns with who they are. So um, that's another one for me. I had one other thought, but it went through my head. Come back. Oh,
It'll
I
be
know.
back. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, there it is. No, the other thing I think in telling family, there's two things off what Casper said is think about who's closest to you because that's who the other family members are probably going to go to with questions. So educate them well. Like who, because, for me, they probably, depending on which family member, they probably go to my sister or my mom or my dad. So really, hopefully they're one of the more supportive people because that's who's going to get a lot of the questions besides yourself. And I also think how you lead the information is important. Like if you're like, "Oh my goodness, oh no," then that's what you're going to get in response. But if you're like, "This amazing thing happened that my child had the strength and courage to tell me their true self and I get to see them and know them and I can't wait for you to see that." There's a big difference in how you present the information.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And those are some great strategies, and it's a great point that you make about you may not be the only one the family's coming to ask questions, or having some of your compatriots like educated as well, and making sure they know how to talk about what it is and all of that. That's great. Anybody else on that one?
One thing that my parents did that I think was very helpful for me personally was acting as the buffer between me and any adult, whether it was like a family member or someone at school who wanted to know more. They said, "Come to me. Do not ask Casper all this stuff. Come to me first." And that way, there is the like with people that I didn't know very well, but they reacted positively. I got to find that out, but I didn't have to have some random person I barely know come up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And with the people who didn't react well, I didn't have to hear it.
Yeah. Sage words.
But also don't like talk to your kid about that first, but it can be helpful in at least some setting.
And recognize for every plan that you make, it might be good for only that person, and it may or may not be the best approach, but it's the one that you've thought through. I think there's the approach of crafting a very thoughtful email announcement or social media announcement. And some people do that because it's kind of a ripping off the band-aid might be what the family has bandwidth for, compared to a more methodical one by one approach. But the advantages of considering, like what Casper mentioned, bringing in one person and enlisting their help, tied with Shannon's show them how to respond by how you deliver it. It can be, you can even include, hey, look, you're chatting with your child's aunt or uncle and saying, look, you're my sibling. I need support. My family has a lot going on. It's really good news, but it's also got its challenges. So I'm looking to you to share this news first because we're tight, because we're close, and also because I need support. So I know that the information I'm going to share may land in any number of ways. I don't necessarily know which one, but I'm here also looking to you to help support me because I love you so much. I mean, you are walking a person to hopefully a better, a more open-hearted response while they may be having a reaction at the same time. I think that can be a very thoughtful and strategic place. And boy, you got to help me with mom when it comes time to talk to her. Something like that. So yeah, good words, folks.
Yeah. Thank you for all that. I just wanted to give a small fundraiser update. Would you like a fundraiser update? Because we've been getting donations this whole time.
Sweet.
And we're now at $12,267.
Okay.
So that's 20% of our goal. It's been jumping up since, and again, we have that double match. So for every dollar you give, $3 comes to TransFamilies. And that means if you give $5,000, $15,000 will come to TransFamilies. So you could just do that. Or, $30 would mean 90. I mean, $30 to 90 is fabulous. So definitely thank you everybody who has donated over the last few minutes. And yes, and thank you to everybody who enjoyed all of our stories, and especially everybody who's given. So is Luana frozen? Yep, Luana's frozen. Okay. I was like, Luana's very happy, but I think frozen. Okay.
Happy, but almost in a creepy way at this point.
Yeah, it was like,
Still.
oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Well, hopefully she will join us back again. And we will see her in a minute. The next question that we have is, I'm struggling with feelings of grief and loss about my trans child. How can I keep supporting them while working through this? And this is one that comes up for a lot of parents, especially as they are first coming to TransFamilies, or first, as Aiden puts it, stepping into that journey. So this is one that we see where you have to reprocess where you thought your relationship with your child was and who your child is in your own head. So does anybody have any advice about that?
Gosh, I have to dive in right away. This is something I'm pretty passionate about. And of course there might be folks that have differing perspectives or even disagreement, but I say acknowledge it, embrace it, own it, step into it. There are a lot of things about parenting that inspire grief and loss. Knowing we can't protect our children from harm, falling down and scraping their knee or elbow or getting a black eye or who knows what, and how heartbreaking it can be to not have been able to protect them from that or protect them from other hardships. And so this is a life-changing element. The child that you've known and loved is still there, but it feels like that child is disappearing. And in some respects, you have to make room for that so that you can then discover that kid who is more authentically themselves, and step into that. And then you get to rediscover all of those aspects of that child, or maybe not all of them. Maybe the depression or the struggles that they've had diminish. But you get to have all of that back plus a child who's more authentic in their lives. So if you need a good cry, if you need to grieve, if you're feeling it at not even just like in the core, not just your heart, but in your gut, I don't know how to recommend anything other than making room for that. And the only caveat that I often share with parents and other caregivers is that you don't need to share that with your child. That that is too much for them to hold, and it's difficult for them to comprehend that grief. It's not their job. So find that partner, close friend, relative, therapist, whatnot, that can hold space for that grief with you. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, and I even as a trans person who is a parent with a trans kid, I had to go through that process. I still went through that process, and like you said, I dived into it and felt it and moved through it and came out the other side knowing my kid even more and even better after.
Yeah, I just have to echo those sentiments. I think I completely agree with Aiden that it is not necessarily something that your child needs to hold with you. I think that is they're already trying to figure out how much of their life has been thrown into chaos by them trying to live as who they are, and that is a lot of pressure to be under. And then to have someone who's so close to them come to them and tell them that difficult of a feeling and putting that emotional labor onto them can be very, very harmful for them and be a really, really tough thing to kind of work through and grow over. And so I think, yeah, I completely agree. I think, those feelings are very normal, very expected, but take them to, the support groups, take them to your therapist, take them to other people who can support you through that. Because at the end of the day, your child needs a lot of support, and that isn't necessarily helping them reestablish some of those connections that they are worried are now fraught.
Yeah.
And trusting that those two things can coexist, that you can show up to support that kid while feeling grief. You might be postponing a feeling here and there until there's a better place, but they can coexist.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Amazing answers. I don't think I have much to add because I think all the points were hit. And I will say that, I've met some parents who feel like they shouldn't feel loss or grief and try to push it away. They're like, I have a live child. And I think it's a lack of recognition that there are a lot of reasons to have grief. Anytime things don't go as expected, people feel grief, right? So, and for many parents, they have thoughts and ideas of what this child's life will be like when they're grown up. So that's the expected versus unexpected that's there. So don't should yourself and make space for yourself, as everyone has said. Find that person that you can trust to speak to. And I don't think any of us can say it enough. It's not for your child. It's for you to process and make that space.
I think that's a really important point, that idea of how should you feel. I think that's not talked about enough. And I think, yeah, you're completely right. Like the thing I think when this topic comes up and that sort of idea comes up of, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Oh, I shouldn't do X, Y, or Z. The point is that you do feel those things and you can't just turn that off. You're not a robot. Nobody's ever been a robot. And so the only course of action is to seek support for that and to work through those feelings, right? So yeah, it's just I think a changing of that framing, as you're saying, Shannon, and I think that's a really, really good point to bring up.
You sound like about 4 of the 5 most recent therapists I've had, which means it's good advice.
Yeah. True.
I want to add one other thing that I've seen happen sometimes with parents who've been through that process, who move through it successfully, and then kind of it diminishes in their minds, and they might even then try to encourage another parent to get past their grief. You don't need to feel that. And it's interesting to see that occur. And if I happen to be there, I remind them, like, hey, you were there. We can make room for this, while we can also look ahead and know that there's some joy and celebration ahead. But let's just go ahead and be in this moment of that grief, and watching you're right, I do remember now. So that piece, and then also sometimes this can happen even within a family, where one caregiver is showing up and advocating and supporting, another one is reticent and or actively grieving, and then that first parent doesn't realize that they've got that until the other parent moves through it a little bit, and then all of a sudden, because they're not shouldering the whole support bundle, bam, it shows up for them too. So, grief is an interesting critter that is unpredictable. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Thank you, everyone, for that. Hopefully that is helpful to some of our parents that are watching. The next question we have is, what is the difference between trans and non-binary? And that is one
is more specific than the other.
Yeah, I deal with this one a lot in the group I do, which is the Parents of Non-Binary Children group. But I'm happy to have others answer first, because I, of course, have lots of answers for that.
I would say that the very simplistic way that I think about it, because I think it's very easy to get caught up in terminology and whatever, but I'm a very visual person. So one thing that I think helps a lot of people is that I think of trans as an umbrella term. So think like an umbrella, and then standing half in, half out is the term non-binary, right? Some people really identify as non-binary. My partner is one of them. They're non-binary. And identify as trans. But then I've also known a lot of people who identify as non-binary but not trans. So it's just kind of a sort of a thing of preference, and that's the most simplistic version. But I want to hear the more complicated responses that others may have.
Before we get to go ahead, Casper. I'll go after you.
The difference is, to me, trans just tells you that whatever this person is, they're not like the gender that was labeled onto them as a baby. Non-binary tells you something slightly more specific, which is this person is whatever their gender is. It's neither 100% completely male or 100% completely female. It's something else.
The only thing I would add to that is just capitalizing on what Cara said, but certainly love what you added, Casper, and that is that there are definitions for things, and then there are the ways that people really truly identify themselves. And the key part is that each person gets identified and determine what their identity is, regardless of what the definitions and the labels and all the various various ways that definitions that people have come up with. So I think that's the key part for me, is that that I don't identify someone, they identify themselves to me. And then that's what I go with, regardless of how they define it.
Yeah, and I like to say in the Parents of Non-Binary Children meeting that there are just about as many definitions of what non-binary means as there are non-binary people, because we all have a different way that resonates for us. And I used trans myself. When I first introduced myself, I said I was trans, non-binary, genderqueer. And I use trans in the sense that Casper defined it. I do not identify with the gender I was assigned at birth. So that's trans to me. There are people, though, who don't want to even have anything to do with the gender part at all, or even the word non-binary, who just they're like, no, I'm out here in outer space. This is where I am. It's not a line of, man, woman. It's this giant nebula thing. And I think one of the ways I like to describe my gender, which is going to be my next tattoo, is as a glittery purple galaxy making a shruggy gesture. That is my gender. That's me. And I'm going to get that tattooed on my arm.
I love it. Just to, continue on that vein, I hear that question and the response is immediate, which is there's no difference and there's every difference. There's actually the word depends. If I had a tattoo, it would say the word depends. It would depends on who's asking. What is the context of that asking? Because the answer that I will share about my gender might have many, many layers. But do I have time for that? Do they have time for that? Is that helpful or not? The words trans and non-binary and genderqueer all resonate with me quite well, and more. So, in essence, I would like to caution against working to delineate them, because what do we need, regardless of which label that we have or how we define that? I don't know. I want acceptance. I want to have a sense of belonging. I want respect for who I am as a human, and I want somebody who's interested in the answer, maybe not in the moment, but is interested in discovering the answer as we get to know each other. So, no, that's a story. That's the story I want to share. And then I can say, tell me about you and your gender. So yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Aiden. Anybody else want to answer that one? I think most of us said stuff. So I want to give another update, because even in just those few minutes that we have been talking about gender, which is what we do all the time around here, so that's wonderful. We are now at 13,506. So we've had some more donations come through. Thank you so much to everybody who's donated. If you want to share this stream with your friends, go ahead. We also have the link that I just posted in the chats that tells you where you can go to make a donation. And like I said, we have a double match right now, and we are trying to use that up. And I'm excited to see that thermometer going up and up. We actually are getting, for every dollar we raise, we get 3. So if you give $25, that means 75. If you give $100, that means 300. So it really means a lot to us right now. So thank you to everybody who has donated. And I'm going to go bring up the next question, which is, my child is an adult and lives somewhere else. How do I support them? And I want to say, the parents of adult trans children, trans non-binary children, is our largest group that for our support meetings. So we have a lot of parents who have adult children, and sometimes their children have disclosed to them when they were adults, and sometimes it's when they're younger and they've grown up. But what do you think, everybody? Shannon, did you unmute?
I did. You give the right answer. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to think what's different about my answer. I mean, there are differences, don't get me wrong, but I think love is the first thing that comes to mind. Show gratitude, love them. I think there's such a desire to have so many questions, as we kind of talked about before. And I think the more you can listen, the better. What I've heard from a lot of parents of adult kids, kids that don't live at home, so that's one of the big differences, is they don't have a legal say in things. And so for some parents, they're trying to grasp at something to try to get it because they want information, they want to understand. And I don't, that's coming from fear and not from love. And so the more you can just take a breath and have a place like Trans Families to come and talk those things through, but with your child, thank them, love them. What can I do for you? I'm here to listen.
Of course, I have thoughts. Lots of them always. And engaging in our groups over the years and watching as we went from one big group where the conversations felt like a bit of a tug of war between families of older adult age kids versus the younger children versus the teens, separating those groups by the age of their children. Uh, I, these are generalizations, but I would say that I felt the deepest pain and grief in those parents of adult age children. Uh, and I think part of it is just the longevity of having that experience and launching their kid out into the world and feeling like, okay, I did it. And then that redefinition shows up and that reflects back then on all of those child rearing years, and having no, like Shannon is saying, having very little say. Um, so remembering that a child who is venturing out into the world and isn't under the roof anymore, perhaps, is busy exercising their independence, is busy exploring and stepping into a lot of areas to find themselves. Who are they, independent of that immediate family dynamic? And they're busy making adult decisions. And, I was a young adult once too, and I made some okay decisions and I made some not okay decisions. This is a big area of life. So that can be really difficult to manage. I think the most important thing would be figuring out how to keep the line of communication open. And that might be a lot of knuckling it. It might be a lot of pressing lips together to keep from saying things. And then how do you show up when your adult age kid needs their parent? Where the younger one shows up and said, yeah, where do you do that, and what do you say in those moments? I think there's a couple of other things too, which is that come to play, because I feel like the adult age children, for all of those reasons, are busy making decisions for their life, and their impatience with their parent or caregiver who's on a learning journey has a relatively shorter fuse than definitely what those caregivers need. So definitely, network for your resources of support. Your kid may have zero tolerance for being the source of information. And I guess one other piece too that shows up, or that I feel like is part of it, is we as trans and non-binary and other gender diverse people, we have a life that we've lived where we tried to find our way. And maybe we couldn't step into our more authentic gender selves until a certain time. And we can have some pain and grief uh, for a childhood that could have been different, if only, and insert whatever. And so, just like any young person, it can be easier to blame those who could have recognized something, perhaps. Why didn't you say something to me? You noticed something when I was young. You're telling me that now. Why didn't you tell me then? Um, you know, parents can then become an easy or a convenient place to express that pain and frustration and even anger. Uh, that's safe because, we might count on those parents to love us and accept us. So I see that being part of the equation sometimes too, that can occasionally take longer to move through than compared to families with younger children.
I would just add one more thing, and that I think that this, while it's certainly magnified for parents of trans people, in a lot of times, not for everybody, but in a lot of situations, I don't think it's a fully unique feeling for parents to have a hard time letting go of their kids as they go out the nest. Like this isn't a fully unique experience, right? It is different in a lot of ways, but I think there's a lot that you know the kid has to explore, and they have to go and be their own person, and they have to go and figure things out and make those mistakes and kind of do all those things. I think the really important thing that you like, the key things in my mind are, respect the child's boundaries and also be there for them when they need it, right? I think those are the two key things that any parent can do to support their child as they're kind of exploring themselves and exploring the grandioseness of the entire world. I mean, it's huge. It's a really exciting place, and especially if you're trans and you move somewhere where there's a lot of trans people for the first time, it's so exciting. It's so different, so new. There's so much to explore. So I just give a little bit of grace, give a little bit of space, and be mindful that this is, all you can do is all you can do, and it's taking one step at a time and being as supportive as you can by being there for them.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk about a lot too in support meetings is, this, when a kid is an adult, it's hard to know what, how to just let go and be like, okay, go do all the things. Okay. And that independence can be really hard to deal with no matter what it is. Whatever it is that's happening in that kid's life. So it's absolutely I love that. Ara, thank you. Anybody else have anything for that one?
May I add something to it? What I was saying is that I think one of the common threads for parents is they want a reason. And I think that's where the fear comes in. Like, is this because of your friends? Is this because of this? Is it because of that? And so, and especially when the kid's out of the house and they have that less control, that desperation to find a reason, which to me is a lack of understanding of gender identity. Gender identity is inner sense of self. It's not based on a friend, right? But because of that, they want to make sure like you're not going into this for the wrong reasons. That kind of thinking, that is probably one of the least supportive things that you could do. And so that's where it's like you have to like check yourself that, yes, I understand as a parent, you want to turn over every stone and make sure like they're making the quote right decision, whatever right is. But it's like, it's not your role. Like, that's not supportive. So it's human. And I don't want to take that away. And take a deep breath and step back, because you'll be the exact person you don't want to be if your desire is to be supportive.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Shannon. Anybody else, or should I bring up the next the next one. Let's see here. What is one piece of advice that you have for a parent whose family's just starting this journey? It can be more than one. I know some of you have a hard time doing just one.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to everybody because I think everybody has that.
Yeah, I think me too. I think
This
that's
entire group
amazing.
is. It doesn't just have to be one.
I can start. I think it's something that I mentioned earlier, and that it's that when a trans person comes out, they don't have it all figured out themselves. They want to feel like an expert, and they want to, whatever, they want to explore all those things because everybody's asking them questions all the time and putting all this pressure on them to know those answers. But a lot of times people don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. This is a time to explore, and it's way scarier for them in this current moment of having just come out and trying to share that with the world, especially with the current horrific landscape that is legislation around the country for trans people, and so putting their needs first, putting their need for support and for someone who will understand them, accept them, and still love them, and be there for them no matter what happens or who they are. I think that is the number one thing, piece of advice that I think I can give.
I think my number one would be join TransFamilies, or at least have some support system somewhere, whether that is a really good friend that is kind of outside, someplace that you can go to be like, I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm upset, I can't believe this person said this thing to me, like whatever it is, like have that place that you can go to take care of yourself. And since you did say we could say more than one, to tag off of that, yes, I was one of them. But don't forget yourself. Like, don't forget who you are, the things you love to do. Sometimes we get so ingrained, like life is still happening. Do the things you love to do for yourself. Do the things you love to do as a family. None of that has to change.
I guess to add to the brilliance already laid out, it would be pace yourself, take some breaths, and don't try to power through it. I've not seen anybody do that terribly successfully. It can be a significant path, and it can be an ever changing and fluid path. What is stated clearly and firmly today, in a couple months, could be completely different. So I would say that, and then I'd also say allow for this tiny sliver of possibility that it can be one of the best things that will ever happen in your life. Might be hard to absorb that now, but just keep that little glimmer.
I could say it absolutely is.
I
I
think
was just thinking I need to check in with my mom about that.
expect everything to change constantly, and also expect that to be okay. That's how the rest of life is too. You never know what's going to happen next. You just have to wait and find out. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. A lot of it's surprisingly pretty good. Some of it's weird and confusing. But eventually you end up on the other side of it, and it's just a thing that happened. Some are statistically more likely than others, though. I dream of encountering frogs falling from the sky. Not yet.
Everybody hear me okay? Okay. My phone rang. I hate it when that happens. My phone rang and I was like, no. Luana, did you have a piece of advice for everybody?
I mean, everyone said what I would have said. I guess the one thing I would add, and what I've heard over and over again, is just encouragement, encouraging your child to be exactly who they are, and supporting them in being who they are, and yeah, I think, and what everyone else said, yeah, encouragement,
What they all said.
what they all said.
And
Thanks.
yeah, absolutely. Encouragement. That's great. So we've got, I have a little bit of an update. And if you're all ready for this little bit of an update, somebody did something wonderful. We're at $28,656. Thank you, everybody, for donating. We had a nice big donor, and that got matched twice, as we know. So that meant double, triple the funds basically to TransFamilies. So thank you so much for the people out there doing that and continuing to donate. I've put the link in the chat there. We've got some exciting celebration. I mean, that's fabulous. Oh, look, we have to put this. Oh, Charlie's putting. Yes, please go to transfamilies.org/donate. But I also wanted to put this up here. Wait, where'd it go? This. Casper's so wise. It's true. Casper is very wise. Thank you, Casper, for being so wise. And thank you. Just, yeah, go to transfamilies.org/donate to donate to our spring fundraiser. We're about, nearing halfway through of this 48-hour fundraiser. And we've got one more question, but before we get to that one, I just want to let everybody know that tomorrow we also have a stream, and it's going to be Aiden, Odetta, and I talking about the conference and the future programming at TransFamilies and current programming. So you will not want to miss that. It's going to be super exciting. It's going to be at the same time tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And, if we still have a double match at that point, then we'll still have a double match, but we might not. We might have run it out. But we are still, like I said, trying to raise $60,000 in 48 hours. And we're almost halfway there. So we can do it. We can do it, everybody. So I'm going to bring up the last question that we have, which is, what is one action a parent can take right now? I like action questions.
Shannon already said it. That is, join us at TransFamilies. What we've heard over and over and over from the family members that join is how wonderful it was to be in the same rooms with people with shared experience. And sometimes those experiences are pretty radically different also. And it helps broaden a person's perspective. So I'm just going to reiterate what Shannon said.
I say go have some quality time doing something fun with your kid, like right now. Because not every part of life is about being trans. And sometimes people need a break. Don't play Monopoly.
I would add in there, I'm going to piggyback on Aiden said join TransFamilies. I would say if you're already a member of TransFamilies, then reach out to us or re-engage. If you need support or you need to sort of reignite, definitely do that and reach out to us and show up tomorrow at ask your questions and let us know how we can best serve you.
Yeah, I'll say as people have iterated throughout this entire thing, and as what we're kind of talking about with these support groups, but also in your own personal life, make sure you have a support network around you, people to talk to, people to reach out to when you have something that you need to talk about. I think that's really, really key. And everyone's mental health is really, really important. So always make sure that that's taken care of.
I guess one thing, I don't think it's the first thing because I think everyone else had the more great things to start with. And I just want to put a plug in that I think education is really important because the way we were raised to think gender identity is the same thing as the biological characteristics, and they're not. And so we have to undo some of that learning. So I don't necessarily think like Aiden said, you have to do everything at once, pace yourself, and don't forget the education piece because there is true knowledge and science, and you have to undo some of what you have been taught. And it will help you instead of worrying about what's the right thing to say. If you understand what gender is, it's less of a question.
Yeah, and that's similar to what I was gonna say, Shannon, is like get a really good book or, something that's a good resource for just learning more. Because I think learning more is always helpful. And like you said, exactly, Shannon, that gives you the language and the tools to be able to talk about it and be able to understand it more. So yeah. Anybody else have a last thing that they would like to say? All right, we're over 30,000 now. 30,543. Oh my gosh.
Let's
Yay.
celebrate with some frogs.
Awesome.
No, I don't have a frog. I have a Dimetrodon. Does anybody have little toys that you would like to celebrate with? Oh
Ooh,
my gosh.
ooh,
Woo!
ooh.
Luana, on and off. Woohoo! I have a Dimetrodon and lots of fidgets.
Here's some little calico critter mouse babies.
Oh, calico
Ewok.
critters. I love those.
That's Ewok. Named our dog after this one.
Aw. Yay. Is it Wicket? Yes.
Yes, you're like one of the few
Of
people.
course I know who Wicket is. We yub nub in this house. We just had May the Fourth be with you last weekend. I unfortunately decided to go to the mall that day, and there was a Star Wars celebration that we didn't realize was happening, and I saw some Mandalorians. So, you know, that's always good. So, thank you absolutely for everyone who has joined us today. Obviously, we've had a lovely time, answered some questions, given out some good pieces of advice, and raised some dollars. So, thank you so much to everybody. Does anybody have a final thought as we go out?
I just wanted to say I know we had a couple of questions that we couldn't get to, and that definitely I think someone addressed at least one of them in terms of saying, "Come find us." You just did as well. So I found the question to be something we could dive in pretty extensively, and how wonderful it would be to see any of those parents to be able to talk to those, addressing those, whether that's in a group or reaching out to us via email or searching for one-on-one support. Happy to do that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Aiden. I was doing too many things. I missed it.
I think
Awesome. Thank you.
oh sorry. Yeah, I think for joining trans families, I think some of the things like I think the beauty of it is that there's privacy. Like we hold that very important and it's a safe space because many parents are like, "Oh, am I going to be judged? Am I, what if I don't say the right things?" It is a safe
Yeah.
space. You can come as you are. You don't have to worry about the language you do or don't have. It is truly one of the most beautiful supportive spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. All right, I think that's it for us tonight. Please come back and join us tomorrow at the same time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, for a fabulous conversation where we learn about the conference and some of our other programming at TransFamilies. And thank you to everyone who has donated. Please share those links with your friends and family, and anybody else that you think that might like to help us out with our spring 48-hour fundraiser. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.